Another video, another species on this trip I'm doing to Mudgee in New South Wales. This is the entrance road to Lake Windermere, just to the south of Mudgee, not too far away. And you can see this beautiful rocky landscape we've got here. Sort of, I guess what we call these sort of metasediments on the side of the road, these big rocky outcrops. And there's a very common tableland eucalypt here. It doesn't just have to grow on this rocky ground, but that just happens to be where it is in this particular situation. And this is one I haven't got round to yet. This is Eucalyptus albens, the beautiful white box, which is a very common tree in the New South Wales inland. The first thing you notice about them is their bluey green leaves. They get up to about 20 metres or so, maybe 25 metres. They don't really get much bigger than that. And as you come up to them, they've got this very pale trunk a lot of the time. And it's a beautiful box bark. It's a really nice tessellated bark in the manner of sort of Eucalyptus and other ones like Microcarpa and maybe Boweriana as well. The trunk here is a bit more fissured. It's got much more deeper furrows and sort of big crumbly chunks coming off. But once you go up the top and you look at even look at a chunk like this, that's typically more what you see. This beautiful sort of tessellated pattern, sort of it's almost like a weaved basket when you have a look at it, like some sort of old sort of basket weaving. That's what it sort of looks like, maybe a cane basket or something like that, sort of what it reminds me of from my childhood somehow. But it's a very pale colour. It's sort of a pale grey, where Eucalyptus is a much more, that I showed from Western Sydney, is a much more brown colour. But it's a very similar pattern. And again, as you get to this particular tree, the bark's going about 80% of the way up, and then the ultimate branches have sort of got these short ribbons, and they're sort of bare stems after that, or bare branches. But albens is an incredibly common tree. It's a Queensland, New South Wales, Victorian species. Here's sort of a juvenile tree here with some juvenile growth. I'll probably get into the shade and sun just to whatever brings it up best. But they've just got these glaucous, waxy branchlets, if you like, or new growth, young growth, which is sort of where albens gets its name, from this waxy hue on the stems. But yeah, it's an inland tree in New South Wales, sort of the eastern half. It doesn't go out to the far west, but it goes out to as far as sort of Dubbo, Wagga Wagga, those sort of areas. And it punches north up into Queensland, sort of through the Toowoomba area. And I think it gets sort of as far north as sort of west of Gympie. It doesn't go much further than that, but that's as far north as it goes, and then it punches down through New South Wales, very commonly through the tablelands and western slopes, and then it gets into Victoria, through the eastern half of Victoria, and ends up around the Bendigo area, sort of northwest of Melbourne there. It doesn't really go much further west than that, but they're sort of the main records to about the Bendigo area in Victoria. And through sort of the eastern half in the main. As close to Sydney I've seen them is maybe around Goulburn or a bit further afield than that. Yeah, also where you get them is up the Wallamai, what are they called? The caves to the Wombian Caves. The Wombian Caves to northwest there of Mittagong. They'll be up in the Wombian Caves area as well. You can start getting albens up in that area. That's probably as close to Sydney as I've seen them. Just going to show you this stem here. Just that waxy hue on it. It's got this white waxy hue that you can sort of rub off. You can see I'm rubbing it off there just with my thumbs. So that's what albens is known to have. And when you look at these leaves, they're very similar to Molycana. They're just very similar in their shape and size and appearance. But remember, Molycana is a beautiful mid to olive green on both sides. This guy is blue, bluey green. There is a massive hint of blue in the leaves. And that can vary a little bit, but it's always got this really definite blue tinge to it. Should be concolorous most of the time for these boxes. The juvenile leaves might be a bit discolorous, but the adult leaves are well and truly concolorous and always well and truly up the blue end. But if these change their colour to mid-green, we'd think it was Molycana. There's not a lot of difference. They've got a sort of thickish texture. They're a very robust tree, albens. Yeah, these leaves are on the thick side. They've got a nice thickish sort of texture to them. And they happily grow as what we call part of sort of white box, yellow box, Blakely's red gum woodlands all across the tablelands here. They're growing on sort of higher rocky grounds, which isn't uncommon for albens. They can get on the more infertile rocky country. I just want to show you this one. That I'm not even going to walk up to it, but that is so typical of an albens. That really pale box trunk. And you can see that, hopefully even in the video, you can see that bluey foliage through the phone. Just so conspicuous when you've got Eucalyptus albens. So just that nice pale tessellated trunk there. That's a really good example of a typical albens tree. Just going to walk across the road where I've got some material that I'm collecting for this workshop. And I've got some beautiful buds that I can show you. I've put most of this material in the collecting bag here, but I've tried to leave some aside so you can just have a good look at the buds. The buds are meant to be in 7s. That sort of goes for a lot of boxes, but check them out. They're just so conspicuous. They're sort of big for a box. They're on the big side. These buds are easily 15 mil long. If we take the Calyptra and the Hypanthium, easily 15 mils. They're probably pushing something like, 17 to 20 mil. And I'm just stupidly linking everything to something. They remind me of a little cluster of sort of finger bananas. That's what they remind me of. Those sort of little finger bananas. You get all those sugar bananas. You can see they're on a nice common peduncle. And then they've got a nice big Hypanthium and probably a shorter Calyptra. They're covered in a waxy hue. So a lot of the time when you see them, they're sort of glaucous. They're very waxy, but I can rub that off and get a more green sort of result. You can see the way they're clustered here, sort of in a bit like Molycana in sort of secondary clusters, but should be in the leaf axils most of the time. But even there, you can see that 2 umbellasters are sort of been grouped together, even though some of the buds are missing, but they are in 7s. And what you can find for albens most of the time, I'm going to collect that bit, is bits in flower. And you can see some beautiful flowers here. So I don't always get these ukes in flower, but this one's a beauty. And you can find albens flowering most of the time. These are really favoured by rainbow lorikeets and flying foxes, and probably a whole heap of insects as well. So there's our buds. And when albens is flowering, you tend to really notice it. It's a beautiful flowering tree. So check out the leaves where the buds are. We'd assume that's mature foliage, but that's what you get in a lot of the time. I think of Molycana-like foliage. I think leaves can be up to 16 centimetres or so long and about 4 centimetres wide. They're described as lanceolate to ovate. I did say with Molycana, you can get sort of leaves looking a bit intermediate between juvenile and adult, but then you can get these really lanceolate long leaves as well in some sort of older trees. But in this albens, we're just getting a real sort of intermediate foliage, really on the fat side. These are well and truly adult branches, but they're on the fat side and differing in length. They're a bit all over the shop. The adult leaves are described as, 4 to 5 centimetres wide. Some of these guys, I reckon, are hitting sort of 6 centimetres wide. A bit like, sort of like Eucalyptus robusta a little bit. They're nice, big, genuine leaves. Here's a tree putting down a lot of, sort of epicormic foliage. Really, really fat leaves here. You can see the waxy hue there. So a bit of a hodgepodge of things going on here. Got a whole heap of trees over here, and they go up onto this rocky ground over here. They're quite dominant in this little patch. And I've got a heap of buds there on the tree. Sort of got to look for those buds. There they are there. And the foliage is really intermediate. I've sort of got leaves to maybe 10 centimetres long or so. And that sort of continues up into the canopy up there. I'm not really seeing any long lanceolate ones, but that can occur in some trees. What I've got to try and find now is the fruits, because they're quite distinctive as well and on the large side for a lot of boxes. So I'm going to try and find some fruit. Let's see what I can get. This is common across a fair bit in New South Wales in some places, these hills of Eucalyptus albens, and you get like a sort of hot bush mid-story, Dodonaea viscosa, trees like Currajong, and a grassy ground layer, and often it's on sort of rocky, maybe sort of Devonian sediments or volcanic sediments, or just sort of an older conglomerate sort of rock type, which I would be a bit ignorant of, but that's a typical alben scenario. If you're ever in New South Wales around the areas like Gunnedah or Merriwa, I just found albens has such a strong dominance through that area. It's like it really rules this part of New South Wales where there's hardly any other tree. You can drive the road from one of the roads to Merriwa, it might be from Scone or somewhere like that, and you just get a ton of albens on the side of the road, and in all the paddocks. Can be really dominant in some areas. So it's one of New South Wales's foremost trees, really, I think, across a lot of the countryside. In this patch of albens, folks, fruits are really hard to come by. It's a bit like Christmas plant collecting. You never get everything you want. But can you believe this branch has fallen down? And this is the sort of thing you look for. And we've got some fruits, which is great. Now, what I say about albens, or what anyone will say, I think, is they're just box fruits on steroids. They're pretty large. They've got not so much a champagne flute look to them, but more of a sort of long, I guess, sort of wine glass without the stalk on it, without the stem on it. They're sort of almost like sessile on the peduncle, but they're nice and big. And they've got that sunken disc and the enclosed valves, but they're a nice size. They get to about 16 mil long. These ones in my hands would be about, I reckon about 10 mil long. But they're capable of getting to about 16. They're well and truly on the big side for a box fruit. Just going to get some more over here. Already they're sort of bigger than the average Molyucana. They're nice and genuine and big, and that's what you look for with albens. They're quite attractive and hard sort of woody when you get them at their ripe stage. And I'm just going to have to collect these for the classroom tomorrow, and it's probably the best sort of examples they're going to get. But you can still see the waxy hue on this fallen branch. And luckily for me, there's just a fair bit of fruit line on it. This one's getting on the big side, sort of getting up well above 10 mil long. It's probably getting up towards 15. So nice and genuine and big. in albens. So you look for those big glaucous buds and the big fruits and just combine it with the bluey leaves and the boxy chunks. There's a whole hillside of them up there. They're all Eucalyptus albens, all those trees there, bluey leaves, the pale trunks. So just make sure you put all those features together. And I just find albens, it was one of the easier ones to learn and recognise. They do integrate, they reckon, with things like Mollucana and Microcarpa across their range. They reckon with Mollucana around Scone and Merriwa and up further north. And they probably integrate with Microcarpa as well. Just going back to the leaves earlier, the leaves didn't have any smell at all that I could discern. There was absolutely no smell. So I'd sort of associate that with Mollucana as well. It doesn't really have any sort of strong smell I can relate to. Maybe just a little hint of eucalyptus there. But like I said, the leaves, they were sort of, even these dead ones, have got a thickish feel to them. Getting up towards our good old capitulata, sort of marker, they got a nice thickish feel. Probably sort of links to a lot of the time the dry, hot habitats they grow in, albens, across a lot of their range. Sort of lower rainfall, drier areas. So that's good old Eucalyptus albens. White box, a very prominent tree in New South Wales. Easy to learn, I think.